Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the Barricade Extreme HD front bumper with LED fog lights, fitting your 07 to 13 Chevy Silverado 1500. This is perfect for the Silverado owner who's looking for a full-width front bumper that includes lighting and works with your factory tow hooks. It features a rugged off-road style with its textured black powder coat finish and heavy-duty steel plate construction. This bumper provides more ground clearance than your factory bumper. It also retains your factory tow hooks in these openings if your truck is equipped with them, and includes 2 high-powered LED cube lights, as well as additional mounting points for lighting, as well as in the center. And as far as price goes, this bumper comes in at around $850, which is middle of the road price-wise when compared to other options. And for your money, you are getting a heavy-duty steel front bumper that includes lighting. So as far as the install goes, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It does feature a direct bolt-up install with no modification required, although you may wish to trim your wheel well liners. All in all, it can be done within 2 hours, so with that said, let's jump into our install. For this install, you will need an impact gun or a ratchet will work just fine. You'll also need 18, 16, and 13 millimeter wrenches, a pop clip removal tool, 21, 18, 16, 15, and 10 millimeter sockets, the included Allen key. You may want a small flathead screwdriver, and you'll need a razor knife or similar cutting tool if you plan to trim your wheel well liners. Alright, so the first step in our uninstall, we are going to pull the grill out. This is not a necessity if you'd like to get to the bolts behind it, but I think it makes it a little bit easier. So let's grab our pop clip removal tool and remove all of the pop clips holding on our Rad Sport cover. And with all the pop clips removed, pull up and remove your Rad Support cover. Next up, we're going to remove the 4 10 millimeter bolts holding on the top of our grill. With your 10 millimeter socket, get these removed. Now with the bolts removed out of the top of the grill, you can grab it and pull it straight back towards you to release the rest of the clips. With the grill removed, you can see the 21 millimeter bolt that you have to remove. Grab a 21 millimeter socket and you may want a small extension. Go ahead and get it removed. And there's another one on the other side of the truck. Go ahead and remove that one as well. Next up, we're going to remove the bolt holding on the bumper support bar. We're going to use a 15 millimeter socket and you may want a small extension as well as a ratchet to get this out. Repeat that on the other side. All right, so be prepared now that all of the bolts are out of your bumper. It's not held on by anything right now, so make sure it's supported. Once you have a good hand on it, go ahead and remove your bumper. Next up, we're going to remove the caps on the end of the frame rails here. There's 2 nuts on the inside, they're 21s, so grab a 21 millimeter socket and let's get these removed. Remove the bolt plate out the other side and remove the cap off of your end of your frame rail. Repeat that on the other side. All right, now one more step before we can install our new bumper. We're gonna remove these supports because we don't need them for the new one. We wanna make sure they're out of the way. Now there's 2 15 millimeter bolts right underneath here attached to the frame. We're gonna get those removed. Grab your 15 millimeter socket and go ahead and get them out. All right, now we are missing one bolt on the other side here, but you want to repeat that step on your other side. Remove all of the bolts that you have and remove the support off of the truck. All right, now that we have our factory bumper uninstalled from our truck, we can check it out side by side with our new bumper here. Now, as you can see, it's a big visual change from the chrome of your factory bumper. Our new bumper features a textured black powder coat finish to give you more of an off-road aftermarket look. In addition, it also features plate steel construction, so although this bumper is a bit smaller than factory, it's definitely stronger. It also has some nice features like the pod lights that come included, and also has additional brackets to add a light bar in the center or additional pod lighting down the road. So with that said, let's finish up our install. All right, so in order to install our lighting, we first need to install these brackets on the top of our pod lights. To do this, you're gonna place your pod light facing down. Once your bracket is lined up, and again, we're shooting for these openings on the side here. What we're gonna do is get our nut right into this slot behind the bracket that we just placed. This is a little bit hard, and if you don't wanna just drop it in there, what you can do is put a little bit of tape on top of a flathead, and that'll help you line it up. And once you have your nut in that opening, we're taking one of the bolts, going through the side and threading it in. Make sure you are going through this bracket. And once you've started, you can remove your flathead, and with the included Allen key, start to tighten it down. Now we're not gonna get this all the way snug because we wanna line up the other side as well. Repeating with the other nut, go ahead and get it lined up. And again, we're threading in the bolt, making sure it goes through the bracket, and threading it into the nut. Now that you have both in, what we're going to do is tighten them down as evenly as possible on each side. As we line up this top bracket. Now we can repeat that with the other light. All right, now that we have the brackets installed on our pod lights, we can get them bolted up to our bumper. First thing we're gonna do is grab the bolt and slide it up in the bracket. Now there are two ledges here that are gonna hold this bolt head in place while we tighten it down. We're gonna use this to line it up on the bumper. Now there are 3 openings on this bumper, so you can line up your pod light wherever you like. I'm gonna go for the center opening. And this kit did not include a washer. I'm just adding 1 washer on top to make sure it's secure, and then installing the included lock washer as well as the nut. And then with a 13mm wrench, go ahead and tighten this down. Finally, we're gonna route the wiring harness. We're gonna go through any of these openings in the honeycomb. Push it through. And off to the side. Repeat that on the other side. All right, at this point we can install the brackets over top of the end of our frame rail. They are marked driver and passenger, so pick the one marked driver. We're gonna start on this side. Go ahead and line it up over top of the frame rail. We do have to install one of these spacers to line it up with the holes in the frame rail itself. This spacer is gonna slide between the frame of the truck and your bracket, and you're gonna try to line it up as best you can with the holes. What we're gonna do here is install our long hardware with a washer, and I'm gonna use this to help line up this bracket. Repeat that with the other hole. Now we're gonna install the hardware on the other side, a washer, a lock washer, as well as a nut. Repeat that with your other bolts. All right, at this point, we're gonna tighten them down with an 18mm socket and an 18mm wrench. Now there is some adjustability in this bracket, so if you need to loosen these and adjust them later on, you can do so. Now we're gonna repeat that process on the other side to install the passenger side bracket over the frame rail. This also requires a spacer, so we're gonna slide that behind and begin to line it up. And again, I'm using the large hardware, and I'm just gonna use it to help direct the spacer where it needs to go. Same thing with the other bolt, and we are using a washer on the end here. Line it up and push it through. Now we're going to install the hardware on the other side. And with your 18mm wrench and 18mm socket, go ahead and tighten this down as well. So if your truck is equipped with tow hooks, now is the time where you would install these extensions. The tow hooks would sit right about here at the bottom of the frame. All you do is unbolt them, bolt this extension in place, and then bolt your tow hook in the end. Ours does not have them, so now we're gonna move on to installing the bumper. At this point, we can get it lined up on the truck so we can get it bolted down. Line it up with both of your brackets so we can install our hardware. We have one of our bolts already installed. We're gonna install the other two. What we're using is a bolt with a washer, and on the other side, we're using a washer, lock washer, and a nut. Now with a 16mm socket and a 16mm wrench, you're gonna tighten these down. We're gonna repeat that on the other side. Again, we have one already installed that's holding our bumper in place. We're gonna install the other two. Again, we're using a bolt with a washer on one side and a washer, lock washer, and nut on the other side. Now with a 16mm wrench and a 16mm socket, we're gonna tighten these down. So next step is hooking up our lighting. What we're gonna do is route this end of our wiring harness to our battery, and then route the rest of our wiring harness to our pod lights and inside our cab. We're starting at the back here on our negative battery terminal. We're removing the small nut that holds on the accessories. This is actually what tightens down your negative terminal as well. We have a 10mm socket. Remove the nut as well as the washer. Route the negative side of your wiring harness to the battery. Just slide it over the top. Replace the washer as well as the nut. Then, using your 10mm socket, tighten it back down. Now we're going to go to the same small nut on the positive side of the battery. With your 10mm socket, loosen this nut up and remove it. Install the terminal over the positive side of the battery. Reinstall your hardware. Grab your 10mm socket and tighten it down. Now we're going to secure our relay. You can bolt this down or you can zip tie it as long as your relay is secured and not moving around. Now there's a spot right on the inside of the fender with an opening. We're just going to be going to that opening and pulling through to secure our relay. Next up, we're going to route the rest of the wiring. These two ends will go to each pod light. We're going to be routing it against the edge of the truck, underneath the rad support, and down under the grill area. Go ahead and clip in each side of the wiring harness to the pod lights. Next up, we have to route this end of the wiring into the cab for our switch. Now there's lots of different ways to route this. I'm going to show you one, and that is down here through the fender and into the cab via a boot on the inside of your door jamb. Now this may be a little bit hard to see because of where it's located. With your door open, you should see some daylight peeking in from your fender. We're just shooting for one of those gaps so we can push our wiring through. Route your cable through. You're going to tuck it up underneath your dash once we're done and make sure it's secured. Plug in your switch. And once it's plugged in, you should be able to see the switch portion illuminated red. And then when you press it, it goes green. Now on the back side of the switch, there's some double-side adhesive. Peel the protective layer off. And then you can place this switch wherever you like. I'm gonna go to right to this section. Again, you can put this wherever is convenient for you. And make sure to route your wiring by tucking it up underneath your dash. All right, at this point, we can reinstall the grill. Line up the tabs on the top of the grill and press it into place. Now we can reinstall the factory hardware. Thread it in, and with your 10mm socket, tighten it down. Repeat that for the rest of your hardware. Replace the rad support cover and line it up with the mounting holes. Reinstall the pop clips. All right, now one thing I did want to point out with this bumper is that because it's higher clearance than factory, your wheel well liners do hang down a bit. Now, if you don't like this look, you can definitely trim them. We won't be trimming on our truck today, but if you would like to, you can mark along the bottom of the bumper here. I would suggest using the bumper as a guide, and then trim off the excess using a razor knife or a similar tool. And one other thing I did want to point out is that if you look through the front of the bumper, you may notice behind the grate you can see your windshield washer reservoir. Now the pod light does a great job of distracting from that, but if you still don't like this look, you can relocate your washer reservoir. Alright, so that is going to do it for the review and install of this bumper. And remember, for all things Silverado, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.